And as we always say, and as we say at the development plan in the for children and families, then the earlier you intervene, the better the results will be. So now I would like to invite two ladies from the Netherlands to speak about early intervention. We have Elle Struijfi, who is a public health doctor and who has been active with the Family Nurse Partnership implementation in the Netherlands since 2003. And we have Silvia von Heijkanti, who is a doctor of children,
on samamoodi doktor ja
who is also a doctor and who is responsible for the survey of Family Nurse Partnership program in the Netherlands. She has been working with it since 2006. The both speakers said that why do they like to work with this program is that they see direct, indirect contact with the family nurses. They see the changes in the family lives. So here is a lesson for us. If we manage the policy, if we look at what is going on in the families, then it is very important to have a direct contact with the families and with those that deliver the work to the families.
Thank you very much, Tere. That's the only Estonian word I know. So I try to speak English slowly so you can understand the translation. We have a program, it's hard to pronounce for you, VoorZorg, but the ones who were here in the morning heard Professor Barry talk about the home visit program, and that's Nurse Family Partnership, and that's our program too. The goal of our program is primary prevention of child abuse, but primary prevention of child abuse means that you have to affect a lot of things that affect also mental well-being, physical well-being, better chances in life. And we have a short, I hope it will be short because we don't have too much time. We can be here for hours, but we shouldn't. So we pass by, a short introduction. We talk about the program and we talk about the research. And then something about the future. The introduction, Anniki had done it very well, so we are fast with that. This is the start of the program. VoorZorg, David Olds, in about 2002, we found out in Holland there was a program for the schools. And even in basic schools, there were children who could not provide the results of the program that was offered. And they found out that those were children who had really a lot of problems in their houses. They were multi-problem, as we say with ours. And they didn't provide of it. So then we found out there was the program of David Olds that was working with this group. We went to Denver to talk with him, and the program is theoretically based. There are 3 theoretics behind it. I'm not going to tell them all. It was proven to be effective in the United States of America, and we brought it to Holland in 2003. It took us more than a year for translation, because it's not only translation, it was the first country out of the United States the program was accepted. And it's not only translating the language, it's also translating into the culture. How do we say things in Holland? How do we leave things in Holland? How is our social society built up? And in the end, we called it a Dutch name, because you cannot call something a nurse family partnership in Holland, because people don't understand. So we called it VoorZorg, that means pre-care. And that's something you can remember. The program has 6 domains. It's the health of mother and child. It's the safety of the direct surroundings. It's the life course of the mother. It's the role the mother has. It's the role of the partner, the family, and the friends. And it's how can they use other community facilities. All of those 6 domains are written down. It's a home visit program with 40 to 60 home visits in 2.5 years. And in every home visit, you look at the 6 domains and see if there are things you can talk about, you have to talk about. But always the first thing, the question is, how are you? What are your questions? Because it's really mother-family focused. The target group we have is young mother. They are pregnant. For the first child, they want to be living. Sometimes there are already several abortions, but this is the first time they want their child to live. They have low income and they live in very risky circumstances. We start as early as possible in pregnancy, and it continues until the child becomes 2 years old. And that's also Professor Merck told about how the development of the brain is there. This is for this target group. It's standardized and it's very flexible. We have had to choose. You cannot have everyone inside, so we had a 2-stage selection. The first selection is usually done by the midwives and others. Sometimes they are even found in the streets or left schools and things like that. But this will be the first time they have their child to be born alive. So they didn't have raised up a child before themselves. They were not already focused about the wrong things you can do in education. There is a maximum of 28 weeks of pregnancy because David Olds found out if you do it later, the result is much less. And that's because also the influence in pregnancy, but also the relation you build up before the child is born. We have a maximum age of 25 years, so they are not only teenage mothers, and they have a low education level. Those first selections are rather easy to found out by the midwives, and then they are in the areas where we have the program. There is a second selection by the nurse who is really educated. Yes, I will be faster. And there are a lot, you can read it. She talks with the parent or with the mother and find out all the problems there are, and if it's possible, if it's positive, they start a professional relation, and it's about 0.5 to 1% of the number of parents. And so we have found a group of 465 mothers, and with them we have done an RCT. And now I give it up to Silvia.
Thank you. Let's see. Oh, can I have that one? Yes. I'm not sure if this is the good side to stand on. So, this actually first result of the randomized controlled trial is that we looked how many risk factors do each of these mothers have. Because in the first selection criteria, it's important that they only have one at least. But for the rest, we didn't look for the most of them, and then we took them in the trial, but one was needed. And so what you see here is that 26% has 4 to 6 risk factors, and 72 has 7 to 9 risk factors. So that means that 98% of all of these women have 4 at least risk factors. And for child abuse, that means when you have 3 or more risk factors, that means like an 8 times more chance of child abuse in that family. So we could say we have the right group, right, for our study. One result also important is birth weight. David Olds has in a certain group found a difference in birth weight between the intervention group and a control group. We did not find that. But what is important to see is that here in the control group, you see it's like 3,100 grams, and here in the intervention group as well. That still is, in the Netherlands at this moment in time, a normal birth weight would be 3,600 grams. So in both groups, they are smaller children, which means always smaller brains with less cells and less connections. So that's important to know. We have a good result in the breastfeeding. So I try to explain the tables because you cannot read, right, what is said here. So what you need to know is this is currently breastfeeding, and you see 6% in the control group and 13% in the intervention group. And you must know that in the Netherlands, it's normal that 14% in this age group still breastfeeds the child after 6 months. So this is a really great result that we have in this, particularly complex group of young mothers. This is about smoking, percentage of people who smoke. At the start, of course, it's the same. That's what you want, right, in a randomized controlled trial. In the beginning, it's the same. Then after 32 weeks, you see that is a significant difference. And also after birth, you see it's a significant difference with less mothers smoking in the VoorZorg group. This is the number, he says, number of cigarettes per day. You see, of course, at the start, it's not different. 32 weeks, oh, it didn't. Ah, my stars fell away. Here, this is after birth. This is a significant difference. They smoke 8 cigarettes per day. They smoke 4 cigarettes a day. And what is also very important is that none of our NFP mothers smoke near the baby. This is domestic violence. The same thing in the beginning, there's no difference. What you see here is that half of them said that there was a history of abuse. That's in their own family and sometimes in the present relationship. And in the last year, you see in the last year abuse, that's 1/3 of them. This is a lot of numbers. I'm not going to explain all of them. What is important to know from our study is that we examined both the woman as a victim and the woman as a perpetrator. And the last thing, that's not a normal thing to do in research, but it's also important to know that women are perpetrators as well. And sometimes it's out of defense, but a lot of times it is because they don't have a good coping strategy in what they could also do. So we train them also in that. And that's why you see there is significant difference, both in women as victims, so they are less victimized, and this is actually the whole table with women as perpetrator, and you see here significant differences in psychological aggression, physical assault, and also sexual coercion. Also, after 2 years, what we see is that domestic violence was reduced in our intervention group compared to the control group. And that was especially in psychological and physical violence. And also in both ways, so women as victim and women as perpetrator. Yeah, and what we really want to know, does VoorZorg prevent child abuse? That was actually the main question, right? And that's the final conclusion here. What we did is we looked at the percentage of child abuse reports. And what you see is that in the control group, 19%, that is 31 out of the 164 children that we could follow up, had a child abuse report, and in our group, the intervention group, only 11%, so that is 18 out of the 168. And that is a significant difference. It's almost reduced to 50%. So we conclude, yes, NFP here in the Netherlands, VoorZorg, is effective in preventing child abuse. And then Elle is going to say something about our financial things.
Well, of course, that's also an interesting question. Is it financial cost worth? And you saw already this morning it is in the States, but also in Holland we did a first financial return on investment, and it says yes, it's more than 20% less expensive if you start with VoorZorg than when you don't start. Those are the profits. I'm not going to tell them all, but you see the revenue is about almost 3,000 euros per child in the 2013. So the investment will be regained in 4 or 5 years. And that's just, we start with it. Now, what's the future? And what's also why we are here? In the Netherlands, it has been proven effective, and we only were allowed to start a small-scale program. Now it's effective. We have agreed with the University of Denver to start the implementation all over of Holland. And the leader of it is the Nederlands Centrum voor Jeugdgezondheidszorg, the Dutch Center of Youth Healthcare. Also in Europe, in the mean 12 years, it has become out of the United States. In Europe, there is already NFP, or a family nurse partnership. They use different names in England, in Scotland, in Northern Ireland. It is in progress in Norway and in Bulgaria for the Roma. And worldwide, it's also out of the United States, in Canada, and in Australia with the Aboriginals. And what we do, we have an international committee, and we talk at least once a month. We have a phone call with some people early in the morning and other late in the evening, so we can just phone together. We share knowledge and we augment the quality. And of course, we hope, because we really believe in the program, not as a researcher, but also as a human being with all those results, that there will become more countries in all of the world, and especially in Europe, to start with NFP. And the University of Denver has asked me to be, for the time being, the contact person in Europe. So if there are any questions, you can always contact us. That's it.
Thank you. That was extremely interesting, and what we saw here also, the numbers, what they show, we don't have to ask too many questions and question that why we should invest into evidence-based programs. This is a clear answer to that. Yeah. And first and foremost, we are investing into our children. So who said that earlier also this morning, that each child, each single child is an asset. We have to invest all of those children. We cannot lose one children in a system. So this is really important work, what you're doing, and this is what we also try to follow as building a universal system for home visits. This is one of the plans, policy plans for Estonia at the moment, but we are closely looking at the Nurse Family Partnership Program as well. Nii, kas on küsimusi saalist? You should perhaps wear that. Oh, yeah. Yes.
I was involved in the very first first implementation in Wyoming. Was the first state in the U.S. to implement it. It was before they had the actual partnership. So I'm wondering, what would you add to the program, having run it, that you think might make it better?
I think our... Oh, you have to use the mic. Excuse me. I have to...
It's also really great.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what else you think you would do.
Well, I think what we can add is, of course, our system of selection, because we are stronger than we are in the States. What we add and what works, you saw the figures of smoking. They are not that good in the States than they are in our program. So we have already started to share the Dutch program for stopping smoking in pregnancy and with young children, to bring it also to the States, to tell them that's the possibility. And, well, what can we add more? And of course, we don't have pipe and star they have in the States. We don't have it. We cannot translate it. But we have brought in the video home training. It's a special way of training by videos and having them brought back in a positive way. And I know David Ols is also very, very charmed about that. When we were in October in Denver, we had an international meeting. We also showed some of our videos with the clients, and it's very positive. We did it already evidence-based for normal families, and now it's also preventive in these families. And what we add now, what might also be interesting, there is some research now for using new social media in our target group with the nurses. Not only home visits, not replacing home visits, but also have contacts by WhatsApp, by sending a photo or a video and discuss it also out of time that the nurse is there. And well, I know in our region they are very positive about it, and the research will be there in June, results.
Yes, and I would like to add about video home training. What's so great about it is that nurses and the clients together look at the videos that they took, like a video from changing the diaper or a video from breastfeeding. And they really can see every little tiny step of improvement. So if you talk about positive parenting and what is it that you want to bring in the relationship between the mother and the child and the father, if he's there, is that is visible for them. So that they are not really like the smartest women. And it is really helpful to do it like this, both for, I think, the nurses and the mothers, because the nurses directly see, oh, wow, this is what I did. This is the positive thing that I brought in here. So that is working also for them as a positive thing.
Veel küsimusi? Hi, I'm Esther from the Netherlands, and this is maybe more a question for Siri also.
Yes.
Because in your presentation you showed that you had all kinds of age groups, but nothing before birth. Is this also a next step for the incredible years, and is that something you could collaborate on?
I don't know that there are any plans for making programs for pregnant women in the incredible years, no. So that's the answer about that. Any other questions? On veel küsimusi? We thank you, but I would open the floor for one comment or one question, or two comments or one question to all the other presenters here as well, or there is something general somebody wants to comment on with. So kui on mingi üldine kommentaar, mida keegi soovib öelda või küsida eelmistelt esinejatelt? No. Thank you very much. Big applause to those two.